Hey, what's up everybody? Welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to share the results of a wheel and tire upgrade that I recently performed on the Darkstar, which is my modern steel frame build that I have featured on the channel for the last 4 videos or so. And I'll also talk a little bit about the background information that I have on Darkstar as a brand, because a lot of people have been asking about that. And many people think that there's like 2 wheel set choices, that being clinchers and tubeless, but there's a third. It's called tubular. I'll talk to you a little bit about tubulars and why I like them, how I use them, and how I'm able to live with them. But let's start with background information that I was able to get on Darkstar as a brand. Darkstar is a brainchild of a gentleman named Justin Spinelli, a former pro who raced in Europe with Team Farm Fritz and also with Team Seiko. And I also believe he was part of the US national team. And he formed Lux Wheel Works and Darkstar. Darkstar was the part of the company that manufactured custom steel, titanium, and carbon frames. And for the steel frames, at least I know that he contracted with different fabricators to be able to build the frames out. One of them being Alchemy Bike Works, which manufactured the frame that I have, the white one. And I've seen evidence of at least one more frame, which is a black frame. But outside of that, I haven't seen any other pictures of any other Darkstar frames. So if you're familiar with any siblings that this bike may have, please let us know in the comment section below. It would be great to know that. All right, before jumping into how these wheels performed, let's talk a little bit about tubular tires because, well, that's what they are. Tubular tires are a tire and wheel system that for many, many years and until very recently, professional cyclists raced on almost exclusively. Many amateurs also use them as their tire of choice. But like with everything else, there's pros and cons. Some of the pros are that they're lighter than clinchers, which means that they can help you to shed some weight overall of your bike build, but also they'll help you to shed some weight off of that all-important rotational mass. They also offer you a supple ride feel. Then the other benefit is tire pressure regulation and control, where you can run from a moderate tire pressure to a very high tire pressure. I mean, like up to like 170 psi. You don't have to worry about pinch flats with them either if you're running a lower tire pressure. And speaking of flats, if you do get a flat, you can actually roll on them for a while until it's actually safe for you to pull over. Roll cautiously, I might add. Now, some of the cons are, what happens if you get a flat? If you get a flat out in a while and you don't have experience or a plan to deal with it, it could completely end your ride and it'll be misery. Also, installation and maintenance requires a lot of experience or specialization. Then there's cost. Well, actually, that's not so bad now because I have noticed that the cost of a tubeless tire is as high or more expensive than tubular tires. But this last one is very troubling. Availability, because there's just not as high a demand for them anymore. So if you use them, I recommend that you hoard them. I'm right now sitting on some 25s, some 28s, and some 30s, just in case. The new wheel set is the Roval CLX Carbon Tubular in 60 millimeters. They do come equipped with the ceramic speed hubs. They're brand new. They're a little bit tight right now, so it's going to be nice to see how they perform once I get them loosened up. I did install a set of Vittoria Corsa 25 millimeters. I did try to fit 28s, and they were a little bit too close, especially in the front to the brakes. I can get 28s on there, but maybe that's something that I'll try in a later date. The outside width of the rim measures 24 millimeters, which I think that blends really well with the 25 millimeters on the tires. The front rim weighs in at 597 grams. The rear weighs in at 750 grams. So that brings us to a grand total of 1,347 grams, which I think is very light, especially for 60 millimeter rims. The effect overall is that they took about 400 grams out of the build that I had previously with a Mavic clincher wheel set. And the subtle change I made to the build was to remove the DETA label off of the seat posts. You know, it's those little things where you get a little bit too much traffic in terms of labeling that can clutter the build. So this wheel set definitely gives the build a little bit more of a modern nod, and the logos on there, you either love it or you hate it. The bad news is that those aren't decaled on, they're painted on, so I'm stuck with it. The good news is that the frame is pearl white, not white, so those are very close in terms of tone, and I think it actually goes well together. The overall build went from 17.2 pounds down to 16.3, or 7.75 kilos down to 7.39. So as I said, I was able to take about 400 grams out of the overall build. So I decided to take the bike out on a solo ride just to see how the bike would perform without having an influence of other cyclists around me, and also to see if there'd be like any aero gains with me riding slowly or at a tempo. So at tempo, I kind of like rode like 19 to 21 to see how that felt. And then what I did was I ramped the speed up from 19 to 21, and I took it up to 25 to 26 just to see what kind of aero gains I was going to be able to achieve with the bike. Now in tempo mode, the bike is very smooth coming off of lights and corners. They are definitely smoother feeling than the previous setup, but also I have to take into account that now I have a 25 millimeter front tire that's also tubular, which is going to give the bike a much more supple feel. The wheel and tire gives off a noticeable hiss instead of the typical hum that I get from tubulars, and this is definitely from the deep section 60 millimeter rims. At speed, I was able to accelerate gradually from around 18 to like 27. The bike responded to every speed surge easily. And then when I parked it between 25 and 26, the bike felt stable. I felt like I could really hold that speed. I'm not going to say with ease, but with a good power effort, I felt like, yeah, I can do this. And then I did notice a bit of crosswind, which made my shoulders tense up a little bit. I didn't really like that, but it wasn't really bad. It was just different. And again, keeping in mind that I'm coming off of box section aluminum rims, that's certainly a difference that you're going to notice. I can't really say that I felt a substantial difference in this wheel set going from the Mavic Ceriums to these wheels on this type of ride, unlike when I upgraded the wheel set on my Bianchi Mega set, going from Fulcrum Racing 1s and 0s to the Zip tubular wheel set. I was like, goodness gracious, this is really different. But the next test will be to get the bike out on a fast group ride just to see how a more aggressive riding environment is going to affect the performance of the bike, and whether or not that's something that I'm going to say, yeah, I really feel that. But the bike was great before this wheel set. The bike is great now. In conclusion, did this wheel set make the bike better? Yes. Anytime you take 1 whole pound out of your overall bike build, you're going to end up with a bike that feels and performs better. Not to mention, I'm sure there's some sort of advantage to be gained by 60 millimeter deep section carbon wheels over box section aluminum wheels at speed. I'm also going from 23 millimeter clincher tires in the front pumped up at 100 PSI to 25 millimeter tubular tires at 85 PSI. I was running those at 80 PSI. So that's going to lend a difference in terms of feel, suppleness, and smoothness of the ride. And also the hub design of this wheel set is more advanced than what the Mavic Cerium came with. So overall, it's just a win-win deal. No question about it. I'm loving this bike. I'm loving the way how the build is coming together. But a funny thing happened. A couple Saturdays ago, I got back on a Colnago to do my fast group ride on a Saturday morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, this thing feels so good. It felt so good to be back on that bike. And then a couple days ago, I got back on the Darkstar, and I was like, this thing feels so good. So it just goes to prove the point that I always make, where it's like, all good bikes are good. They all feel good in their own way. And it's not that I think that one is superior to the other. I just think they're different. That Colnago feels awesome. The Darkstar feels awesome. I love riding all of them. And I'm sure when I get a titanium bike and have an opportunity to build it up, I'm going to be like, this thing is awesome. So just, think about planning out your builds. Be intentional about what you're trying to achieve with the bike. And by the way, on that Colnago ride, I actually have a video that I shot of the entire ride. I'll post that on the channel in the next couple days. And this time I'll actually add a commentary on it. It's not as long as the other video that I did on the group ride. It's about 15 minutes, but I captured some really good footage. I'd like to be able to share that with you guys. So what's left? Well, I think I need to do kind of like a steel frame anthology. So I have one more video to produce in terms of this build, and then we'll move on to another project. So hey, thank you so much for supporting this channel by watching the videos, by liking, commenting, and subscribing. As always, our aim here at the channel is to inform, instruct, inspire. Be blessed.